Hello, I'm Greg Hardy, CFP and AEP. Here with me today is Dr. Andrew Schneider from the AAPPM. Andrew, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Greg. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Happy to be here with you.
Absolutely.
So here's episode 2, and today we're going to be talking about the kind of why behind the podcast, and dig a little bit deeper into what that means and what we're planning on doing here. So let me ask you this. Where do you typically see your fellow doctors needing help?
That's a great question. There's a number of places generally. First of all, I think doctors are used to healing people. And so because of that, they're trying to heal their businesses in the same way. And they try to take on everything themselves and feel that no one else can do what they do. And that's a problem in business, and that's a problem in practice, because in business, there are a lot of resources that we have where the doctor shouldn't be doing every piece of it. For instance, payroll. The doctor doesn't have to necessarily worry about payroll because they should be busy with other things. In the practice, they should not be involved with, let's say, dispensing orthotics, since we're a podiatry podcast. That's something a staff member can do. But it's especially for the newer practitioners, I find that they try to keep their hands in absolutely everything, and they just don't have time for everything. And they burn out really, really quickly, and they end up skipping steps and missing opportunities. And as a result, they start struggling.
That's pretty interesting. It's kind of one of those things from my experience, one of those things when you get into business, you wear all the hats, right? You're taking out the garbage, you're doing marketing, you're doing payroll, like you mentioned. And at some point, you kind of have to figure out what lane it is that is most profitable for you to be in, and kind of stay there, and or outsource something to someone else to do, or hire somebody to do it so you can spend more time, running the business or practicing.
Yeah, it's funny because every thing that I've ever done that I've taken myself out of, that I've divested and given to either a team member or outsourced, I've always felt that that's it. I'm going to do it, and then my practice is going to die because my patients are going to realize that I'm not doing it. And you know what? In every single case, 100% of the time, they just didn't care.
Yep.
In fact, they might be happier because they were seen faster because I didn't have to see them, or I didn't have to do it. They weren't waiting for me, because very often I would become the backlog because I just had so much to do. And every time I took something off my plate, nobody cared. It just worked better.
Yeah, nice. Became more efficient.
Much
as long
more
as
efficient.
you properly train the person that's taking that off your plate. If it's not something you're outsourcing, right? I mean, if you're going to have a team member internally take it over, you just make sure they're trained and there's a process for whatever that is, and move on. So do you have any specific stories, either successes or struggles, that you've had conversations with podiatrists that are either new out of school and just starting to run their own practice, or maybe something where somebody purchased a practice and it was a bigger bite than they had anticipated, and it was a little bit of a struggle?
Yeah, a couple of stories come to mind. Unfortunately, I have a lot of them. For one, I'll tell you about two former residents of mine. One started working for a orthopedics practice. So he was a podiatrist in an orthopedics practice. And at the end of the year, when he was expecting a bonus for the end of the year, he instead received an invoice, because he didn't realize, but he was getting paid essentially as an advance on his earnings, and he didn't hit that benchmark. So he had to pay back a significant amount of money because he was kind of set up to fail. It wasn't his fault. A lot of times these multi-specialty practices, they don't necessarily refer to the podiatrist in-house, and it was a bad situation. So he ended up settling with that initial practice, and he opened up his own practice, and he became wildly successful on his own. So he pivoted, he kind of hit hard, pivoted, and was very successful afterwards. Another former resident of mine, he started his own practice immediately after residency. In fact, his wife was starting to market for him before he was even done with his residency, trying to get the local doctors to get to know about him, that he was coming out. And he opened up, and he exploded. He did everything right. I remember sitting with him and his wife at a restaurant, just kind of helping to talk them through kind of the steps, what they need to do, what they need to look out for. And they did everything right. They took the ball. They took every piece of information they got and implemented it, and wildly successful practice.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hit a grand slam right out of the gate, but oftentimes, as a business owner, a lot of people, I think that running a business, goes kind of upwards. And at least in my experience, people that I talk to and meet with, it's more of a this, right? There's always the ebbs and flows of things as you have the challenges day to day or week to week. But hopefully in the long run, you make it happen. But sometimes there's those grand slams that everything just lines up and the universe makes it happen. So that's awesome. And you got to celebrate those success stories. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. There are so many people who will tell residents coming out that if they open up their own practice, they're just going to fail. And that's one of the missions of the AAPPM, is to let them know that they're not going to fail, that they're going to, that they listen, not that it's easy and they have a lot of work they need to do, but if they do everything right and they focus on it and they put their heart into it, they're going to be able to be successful.
That's amazing. That's good. So I've got something here that talks about why business strategy is healthcare strategy, protecting both patient outcomes and owner well-being. You want to speak on that?
Yeah, business and healthcare are one and the same. Listen, more and more insurance companies are dictating what doctors can do. I have one patient now who has a diabetic foot ulcer, who I cannot get approved any advanced treatment for him because his insurance is denying everything. And it's taking a long time for this wound to heal. And the fastest way to heal a wound is with some of these modalities and dressings. And we've pretty much tried to get everyone approved through insurance, and they've denied every single one of them. So business is healthcare now. We're not practicing in a vacuum, and we have to learn how to pivot and treat our patients within the confines of the insurance company, or explain to our patients that, listen, we need to go outside of insurance for this. It's going to cost you cash, but this is why it's important to do that. And there's a lot that we're doing now with regenerative medicine, with things like shockwave therapy and platelet-rich plasma, which are statutorily outside of insurance. No insurance covers them, but they're very successful procedures, and people are paying cash for them every day because they find it's the fastest way, and without medicine, without surgery, that they'll get themselves healed. So, So there's a business and business side to healthcare. Again, that it's hand in hand, and you need to understand both and to be successful.
So how do we reframe that of what podiatry looks like today, maybe for someone that's out there practicing on their own? How do we reframe that to make it and elevate their success? And how are we going to continue to do that through this podcast and through the support of the AAPPM as well?
Well, I think we both should have an answer for this one. It's practicing what you enjoy doing. I always talk, when I talk about marketing, that you don't want to market a procedure that you don't enjoy doing. You don't want to market to a condition. Listen, if you don't like treating, I just mentioned diabetic foot ulcers, there are people who love treating them, and there are people who hate treating them. If you hate treating them, then don't treat them. That's a great way to refer to another practitioner who loves it. So do what you love and don't do what you don't. In my practice, I I am a pretty generalist practice, but I have a focus on pediatrics. I have a focus on sports medicine and runners. And that's where I make my effort when I market, because those are who I want to come in the door. It doesn't mean I'm turning everyone else away. So it's a matter of defining in your practice what you want to do, and also make sure your practice is there to feed and nourish your lifestyle. And I think, Greg, that's where you come in terms of it's, the practice is there to make the money, and then you have to keep the money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that brought up a couple topics that I was thinking about. Not only do the things you enjoy doing as far as the practice of medicine and the procedures and things, but do it for patients or for clients that you enjoy. I heard it referred to as the barbecue test. And if you've got a client that you wouldn't necessarily want to invite to your barbecue, maybe it's not a great client to have, right? So if you could picture yourself having a barbecue and inviting people over, that's somebody you gel with, and that might be a good patient or a client to have. The other thing I would say is that, personally, I didn't get into business to work 150 hours a week and get divorced and have my kids hate me, right? I enjoy being able to have that balance of, like you mentioned, that lifestyle balance, and then also, set that up for future success later on down the road. But being able to still enjoy what life has to offer today, while still running a successful business as well.
Yeah, the thing about practice, Greg, and owning your own practice is to some extent you can make up your own rules. There are some rules that we have to follow, compliance and things like that we have no choice about. But when it comes to things like our employees, I had a situation where I realized I have very long-standing employees. I have very, very little turnover, I'm happy to say. And these women have been with me for a long time. And I realized that one of them had never been to her child's performances at school or a field trip or anything like that. And that didn't seem right to me, because if my kid has a ball game, I end my day early and I go to make sure I'm at the basketball game. So I implemented what is called in our practice mommy hours. And this is outside of PTO. And every team member has 18 mommy hours a year. And that's exactly what it's for. It's for going to go to an awards banquet at school, to go on a field trip or something like that. And it's not something I had to do, but it's something because I valued my employees and I value my team and I value their happiness and I love their kids. When they started with me, they had no kids. So to me, it's part of nourishing the relationship we have with our team. And yes, there's some time that they're out of the office because of it. But what I get back from that is heads and shoulders more than what it's costing me, whether it be, comp time or whether, time without them in the office. It's been one of the best things I've ever done. And then they appreciate it. And that's, if they're looking for a better offer, I guarantee no one's offering that.
Yeah, for sure. I always tell people that we run a family first firm here. And that doesn't mean that we don't work hard and we're not here, to cover for people. But if somebody's got to take their mom to the doctor, or like you said, a ball game or something like that, you better be there. Like it's important, and that feels great, and the engagement goes up from the employees. And so that's awesome that you implemented the mommy hours. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and again, that's where we get to make our own rules. There's nowhere you're going to find that written anywhere. I made it up on the fly, and I said, let's just do this. and they were blown away that I brought it up, and I said I can't have them not being part of their kids' lives. That's too important.
Yeah, for sure. So, how can we continue to inspire podiatrists to step into their role, the full role as clinicians and business owners? How do you think, what other things that can we do to help support that, outside of continuing education and conferences and podcasts? Are there any other things that come to mind?
They need to come in with an open mind. And when doctors, and I'm sure every profession, when they come out of school, they think they know, or out of residency, they think they know everything. They know absolutely everything. And then they hit their first roadblock, usually about a week into practice. And I start getting texts and phone calls saying, what did you say about that again? Yeah. Like, remember that time I wasn't listening to you when you told me something? What was that you were telling me again? So it's really, I think, learning how to approach practice and business with an open mind, understanding that you don't know everything and you probably know less than you think you know, and looking for the right solution, looking for the help that you can get to make yourself successful, because there's so many resources out there. And I think that between the APPM, beyond financial planning, and this podcast is exactly what a lot of doctors are going to need to kind of get past that.
Yeah, for sure. I love the continual improvement, continual learning mindset. I'm always trying to learn something. I don't know if it's just I'm naturally curious or what the reason for that is, but that is one thing that really excites me about the financial planning world. Tax laws, or IRS laws, taxes, things like that. There's always something changing, and so you constantly have to be learning new and improved methods, and whether it's practice management stuff or it's industry specific stuff. I love the associations and how they support the members and help mentor people, and the networking opportunities. And I've found most of the time the people that you're networking with, I know people will say, well, we're competitors, but everybody's usually willing to share stories and have a shoulder to cry on, and be there to raise a glass for your successes later on down the road too. So that's super cool to be a part of the association and help support the industry overall.
I can't remember his name, and I'm upset about that, but the doctor who really started the APPM, years and years ago, when a new podiatrist opened in his town, he would take 10 patients and send it to them as new patients. That's would be, cool. Of course, it's probably the 10 problem patients, but but regardless, I thought it was a beautiful way of doing that. And someone once asked me, like, I'm training all these residents. What if one opens down the block for me? What will you do? And I'll say, I'll help them any way I can, because my good friend Rem Jackson, who will be a guest at some point on this podcast, he says a rising tide floats all boats. Definitely. And it's and that's how I go into practice. That's how I train my residents, and that's how I focus with the APPM. Is that's really the whole crux of it, is whether you're across the country or whether you're next door to me, I'm going to help you succeed. And that's what we do, and that's why people come to our meetings, and like the meeting we're going to have in November in Fort Lauderdale, and they realize that it's a meeting like they've never been to before, because it's a group of people where the board is accessible and speakers are accessible and happy to answer any questions, and will give you their email address and will help you in any way they can. And that's unique, because there's always they say that podiatrists eat their young. And if you ever sat through residency interviews, you kind of would know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, through we're kind of the mirror image of that, where we help each other. And that's really the hallmark of the Academy. That's
awesome. That's great. I'm looking forward to the conference as well. Something that's great about this, the podcast, excuse me, is it doesn't have any geographic borders, right? People can listen to this wherever they're at. And so I like that. We may have some constraints from time to time, with it having to be, in our city or close by or in the state or something. But this is cool because we'll be able to reach people all over the country and world, hopefully. So,
absolutely.
So let me ask you this. Looks like we're bumping up against time here, but how do people reach out to us or follow us for more content and information about this podcast and any other resources that are available.
Well, whatever podcast platform you're listening on or watching on, you can subscribe to this podcast, and this way you'll be alerted every time there's a new episode. And you also can email us at entrepreneurialpodiatrist@gmail.com to if you have any suggestions or questions. And finally, you can reach us at our respective businesses, the AAPPM and at Beyond Financial Planning, if you want to engage with us there.
Sounds great.
All right.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I listen, I think more than anything, and something we didn't really touch on, and I think we could probably do a whole episode on this, is the success in any business and the success in any practice is mindset. And I think we don't take enough time to train our minds with a success and an abundance mentality. And I think that's something that everyone should, take a time to read, even just 10 pages of a book that's going to help us, not necessarily, not a business book, but a personal development book. And as a result, you'll find that you're going to feel calmer. And that's how I start my days. I start my days reading 10 pages of a book. And it's better than checking my email first thing in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. Well, those are very wise words to part with today, and more from Andrew Schneider and Greg Hardy in the Entrepreneurial Podiatrist podcast on the next episode. Look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Podiatrist podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at aappm.org or aappm401k.com. You'll find all our social media links in the episode summary. We'd love to connect.